Dear hearing people, since it's Deaf Awareness Week, I would like to share some of my experiences as a deaf person with you, or more specifically some of the experiences that I've made during this pandemic. Now, before I dive straight into talking about myself, I want to make one thing very clear. I'm not looking for your sympathy, let alone your pity. I just want you to listen as I share my personal experiences, as that is how awareness is raised, by people like us sharing their authentic experiences with you. And if I can play a tiny part, however small that may be, in this awareness raising, then that's probably what I should do. Another disclaimer up front, I'm not against face masks, far from it. I actually think they have been incredibly important in our process of trying to get a grip on this pandemic. Yes, they make lip reading and trying to navigate this hearing world as a deaf person pretty much impossible. However, I of course know that it's not the masks that have made venturing out into the public more anxiety-inducing for deaf people like myself. It's the people behind those masks that are usually the problem. I have severe to profound hearing loss, mostly on the profound end of the spectrum in both ears. Although I wear hearing aids, I struggle to distinguish noises and voices in noisy environments, such as the store or public transport. And even if I do hear a noise, I cannot necessarily tell which direction it comes from. While lip reading is not as exact as some people might think it is, I do rely on it heavily to communicate verbally. Of course, that also means during the pandemic, when everybody started wearing masks, that made it quite difficult for me to talk to other people in public. As more and more people started wearing masks in public, some people created masks like this that have a clear window out front, so that deaf people could still lip read through that window. Also in Germany, where I have lived for the past couple of months, we're actually allowed to wear these out in public, but we have to wear medical grade masks, meaning the KN95 masks or the blue surgical masks. And it's kind of scary for me because I have lost the ability to even tell if someone is trying to talk to me or not when I'm out in public. It has repeatedly happened to me that I was out at the shop somewhere and someone asked me to move out of the way, but I didn't even realize that I was being spoken to at the time. Most people just wait. Some impatiently so, but they wait. If you're one of those people, thank you so much. However, others take matters into their own hands, literally, and will just shove or push me out of the way. The sad part is that I've been trying to remember whether this is something new that only started with the pandemic or whether this has always been the case, and I just don't remember because before the pandemic I wasn't socially distancing from people and I wouldn't necessarily take note when somebody would touch me. From my memory, it feels like this has happened before, but probably less frequently so, because when I can see lip movements, I can at least figure out that people are talking to me, and I can then guess that they are asking me to move out of the way. And also, speech is so much more muffled through the mask, so my hearing aids might not pick that up, where they would pick up clear speech coming directly from someone's mouth. But yeah, I also think that in the past year I have become more aware and protective of my own personal space for the obvious reasons. So here's what happened to me at Aldi a few weeks ago. I was at the checkout loading all my stuff onto the conveyor belt, and as you probably know, at Aldi, the cashiers, they are so quick, so you really have to hurry up, right? And I admit, I was totally engrossed in what I was doing, trying to be quick and not drop anything on the floor in the process, when I noticed someone rather violently tapping me on or poking me in the arm. Now, it wasn't like it actually hurt, but it was definitely rougher than I would like to be touched by a stranger without any warning whatsoever. It gave me a bit of a jump scare as well, because I was just not expecting it. It came totally out of the blue to me. The couple in front of me, a man and a woman, probably in their 50s or 60s or so, and I hadn't really taken notice of them anymore since they had finished loading all their stuff on the conveyor belt, and the man pushed the cart round to the front to load everything back into the cart and pay for his grocery shop. Obviously, as they moved along, I also pushed my cart further along to finish unloading my own shopping cart. Now the thing is, as I was unloading my shopping, I actually had my back to them, so I hadn't realized that the lady hadn't moved through with her husband, but she stood fixed in place where she had been standing before. So I did not actually understand much of what the man said, but I could tell from his whole behavior and gestures that he thought I got too close to his wife in the whole process as I moved up with my shopping cart, because he kept pointing at the little stickers on the floor that they have where they tell you to keep your distance. From how it all went down, I also kind of gathered that either he or she had asked me to move out of the way before, and I obviously had not reacted because I was completely unaware of that. I actually apologized and explained that I didn't realize I had got so close to her. I also explained that I am deaf and that I lip read, so I couldn't understand what he was saying, and also I probably missed it if he said something beforehand. Meanwhile, I can tell that the guy, he's still talking to me, right? I don't actually know what he said, but as I said before, this was also not the first incident of this kind, and I have just been getting so tired of it. So I told him that if the distance, the social distancing, is something that is so important to him, then maybe, you know, poking me in the arm was not the right solution. It would maybe be better to wave or try to get my attention another way. So at this point, he was still talking to me quite agitatedly, and I was agitated too, so I admit I may also have raised my voice. Obviously, you can imagine at this point, everyone in the store is staring at us and at the whole thing that is unfolding in front of them. So it was quite embarrassing, actually. Anyway, at this point, that's the only time that she actually spoke and said something, and I understood her quite clearly. She said, "Oh well, how am I supposed to know that you're deaf?" The thing is, obviously she couldn't know, and I tried to explain to her that just because someone is ignoring you, you can't automatically assume that they're trying to be rude, but you just have to contemplate the option that they might actually not have heard you. Meanwhile, her husband keeps talking to me and what I can only assume berate me, but he started being quite animated about it and gesticulating, because even he seemed to have gathered at this point that I could not actually hear what he was saying. He then approached me and came a little bit closer one last time, and I could hear what he would say, but at the same time he was also sort of gesticulating like this, and he was saying, "Well, you need to be more aware of your surroundings then. You need to pay more attention." I went along the lines of trying to explain that, yes, I do, and I'm so sorry that I wasn't aware on this occasion, but at the same time, you should also apologize, because you can't just go around and poke someone in the arm because you think that they are ignoring you. It's just not right. You just cannot touch a stranger like that. He proceeded to shout at me, and he also ended up making some rather rude gestures at me that indicated that he thought I was crazy. I will not repeat them at this stage, but you can probably go figure. Now, remember, I was at Aldi. It was actually quite busy at the checkout. There were so many people around us, but everybody was just staring. Nobody was saying anything. The cashier that was serving him and then later served me, she just kept her head down and pretended like she had no idea that the whole thing was going on. It was just when he started insulting me and making those quite obvious gestures that a young cashier from another store turned around and actually told him to tone it down, please. But that was literally the only reaction that we got, other than people just staring at us. He was done paying at that point anyway, and they went up on their way. I managed to hold it together until they were gone before I started crying. Let me correct that. I started sobbing uncontrollably, which I realized made everyone around me really uncomfortable. But then I guess at least the lady who was queuing behind me tried to go a bit like, "Oh, they're there, don't worry about it, it'll be fine." Now, this whole confrontation that happened on that day, this is obviously the most extreme example. Normally, people will just sort of push me or shove me out of the way or squeeze past me and then move on with it. Nonetheless, it didn't really help with my anxiety, and I know it feels kind of crazy. I have traveled in North and South America by myself, but I'm currently anxious to go and buy groceries in the country that I was born in. The thing is, during the whole incident, I was quite rigged up and my brain was foggy, so I didn't keep my cool and explained everything the way I should have. What I should have said is, Dear hearing man, yes, I'm aware that I need to be aware. I'm constantly aware, to a point where just going out and doing simple stuff can actually be quite exhausting. To some extent, it has always been that way because I don't have all the same senses to work with as you do, so it's never really been a level playing field between the two of us. However, this past year has not made it easier. It's been kind of tough on all of us, hasn't it? And in this instance, I slipped. I struggled with the multitasking aspect of it all, trying to load my things onto the conveyor belt, the sensory overload of being in a store environment, and making sure that I keep my distance from everyone. I slipped. I'm aware of that, and I'm really sorry. I'm also aware that I live in a hearing world that is asking me to adapt. It shouldn't necessarily be that way, but that's the way it is. All I'm asking of you is to do the same in return. Please be aware. Be aware that if someone ignores you, there are two common reasons for this. A, they're being obnoxious and they just don't want to move. B, they didn't actually hear you. Please be aware that it could be scenario B. Personally, I would just err on the side of caution, you know? You have nothing, absolutely nothing to lose by being kind rather than rude. Being rude has never made an obnoxious person less obnoxious. But being rude to a disabled person could really negatively impact on them, causing their anxiety to spike or their mental health to deteriorate. As I said before, I don't want your pity or your sympathy. Actually, I have arrived at a point where I'm fine, mostly. I have a supportive network of family and friends behind me. I have a career, I have a good life, I'm happy. I'm annoyed, yes, but I'm also okay. But others might not be, and during other periods of my life, I might not have been. However, what I want for you to know is that if someone is a disabled person that ventures out into public, a public that is not always able to or willing to accommodate to their needs, then they're always going to be hyper aware. But they're also just human as well. Their awareness might slip. I slipped the other day and I wasn't aware that I was in relation to other people, including your wife. And all I need you to do in those moments is to also just be aware. Be aware that the playing field is not level for all of us.